Okay, so hi everyone and welcome to today's episode of Yobo Live. I am Shivangi, your host for the evening, and in today's session we are breaking the barrier of gender divide in a field very close to my heart, human resources. As you all must be knowing that in 2014, 76% of HR managers in the industry were found to be females. But today in 2020, we have a strong male representation in our panel. And of course, we have with us the extremely talented Adya. So, guys, without further ado, let's fire away today's session. And I would like to request all of you to introduce yourselves to our viewers out here.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I am Adya. I did my MBA in HR from MDI Gurgaon. And now I have joined ABGLP program as a leadership associate. And I have been working with ABG for past 6 months.
Thanks,
Good evening, everyone. I am Naveen Sandal, second year student at SCMHRD Pune, where I'm a part of Samatva, the ISR club that works towards various social initiatives. I completed my internship with PwC at SDC this past summer in their management consulting role with their people and organization competency. Prior to SCMHRD, I worked with TISS for about 38 months. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Debayan, and currently I'm studying my second year in HRM at XLRI. I've entered at Amazon, where I have been working as an HRBP, and I'll be looking forward to joining the company in the future. And in XLRI, I've been a part of the cultural committee, the dramatics committee, as well as the social media and PR cell of the college. Prior to joining Excel, I was working in TCS as a system engineer for 32 months.
Hi guys, I'm Vishal Didwania. I'm a current second year student from MDI Gurgaon. I joined MDI Gurgaon fresh out of campus. I'm a commerce graduate from Calcutta University. At MDI Gurgaon, I'm a part of the placement committee, and I am an accomplished chess player as well. I was one of the finalists for Godrej LOUD. I went on to intern with Godrej and secured a PPO. I'll be joining Godrej next year.
Great, Vishal.
Hi everyone, I am Shadab, and I happen to be born in Nagaland because of the army background, and brought up in some northeast part of India, thereafter in Delhi. So kind of totally Indian. That's the unique aspect from the personality side. I am pursuing organizational development from TISS Mumbai. Prior to that, I have a research and consulting experience with the Smart Cube consulting firm based in London. And prior to that, I had my graduation from Amit University in biotechnology.
Hi everyone, I'm Aditya. I'm a second year student at XLRI Jamshedpur. So in my summer, I interned at Dr. Reddy's laboratories. And prior to joining XLRI, I worked with Cognizant for about 2.5 years. And at XLRI, I'm part of the social media and the PR cell, as well as the committee which organizes the annual flagship festival at XLRI.
Great. So thank you guys for your introductions. We definitely have an extremely diverse panel here today. So guys, let's address the big question here. What made you guys attracted towards a career in human resources? Amongst all the other fields like consulting, marketing, and operations, why human resources? So anyone can go ahead and start. Yeah, sure, Naveen.
Yeah, so for me, it was basically while I was working with TCS, I was working with a lot of Indian clients who were kind of startups, but were working with TCS for different projects. And I was working in a very agile atmosphere where, I had to adapt very quickly, and I was working multiple teams and constantly facing the clients and interacting with them, working on their business problems. And that kind of changed the way I was looking at problems from a more technical perspective to a business perspective, right? And then without even realizing, back then I didn't realize this, but now that I studied all of these theories and all of those logics that now we know, I didn't realize I was solving kind of the problems that were between multiple stakeholders that we had from TCS as well as from that client that I was working with. So that kind of pushed me through it. And then once I joined SCMHRD, there's this process that we go through. We have a psychometric evaluation that happens, and every student is made to go through that. And it kind of helps you to, narrow down where your interests lie and the way you learn and what kind of person you are. And that kind of, was the last last nail in the coffin that, okay, this is for me. Yeah. So that's how I decided to go for HR.
That makes a lot of sense, Naveen. So what about Shadab, Aditya, Vishal, Devayan, and Adya?
So this choice came up as I was preparing for CAT and I was not having HR in my mind exactly. I'll be very honest with it, but there was an interaction with one of the leaders of one of the forces, armed forces of our country, and I just was talking about it. I mean, we were just having a conversation about it, and he just said that, I mean, in as a part of that discussion, I just got to know that how important it is to motivate the employees or the people who are working for an organization. And a sudden change in the attitude of the employer towards their employee can totally turn around the game. So that actually inspired me a lot. And when I got through MDI's HR program, I didn't even have a second thought about going to other colleges which I had converted. So I mean, I just didn't. I didn't give it a second thought, and I just joined the institute. And I mean, till now, it has been an amazing journey to be in the HR domain. So yeah.
I totally understand that, Adya. So what about other people here? What inspired you to take HR?
So for me, my sister was an alumni from MDI HR, and I have seen her live in my house when she was actually working with HR and when she was going through various subjects. And at that point of time, I was an engineer, and we both had a fascination for maths. So while preparing for her MBA, even I got interested in what the entire gist of CADSAT and all the likewise things are. And so slowly, due to her, I got introduced into the world of MBA and hence HR. Now, when I talk about specifically HR, there are certain aspects which I definitely like is the fact that you get to interact with a lot of people, first of all, and I'm being a very social person, is one who'd go on, who'd rather like to meet with a lot of people than to be just narrowed down to one cliche of the industry. So that might be one of the major reasons and one of the primary catalysts for why I decided to take up on HR. And once I converted Excel, there was no turning back because I was very fortunate. I felt that this was supposedly the best place in the country to study in HR, and being one of the most prime subjects in the college, I decided nothing held me back and I went forward with it.
That's a great story, Devayan.
Thank you.
So I had pretty much a similar experience as Adya and partly as Devayan. So one of my close friends who was preparing for CAT, he was 1 year senior to me, and we happened to attend classes at the same place, and he converted MDI HR. That was unique, and we had discussions that क्या करूँ MBA में घुस के, what is that field you want to go, and I was someone who never had thought about HR, so he gave me that perspective that this is what you do in HR, and this is the place I'm going to intern with. By the time I was in a position to decide as to what I'll do, that guy was having his internship, and he said that this is what I am working on, this is what we normally do. So once I had the converts, MDI HR was one of the converts, and it was a practical decision for me, more on the practical note that yeah, I mean, I like the way he's working and I like the field in general, and MDI HR is a good place to be in. So a combination of all of that, and I landed up in MDI HR, and after that it's been a roller coaster journey. I didn't even sit for placements. I was picked up by Godrej before that, PPO'd, not even sat in a single GD, the whole MBA passed away. So
that's quite an interesting journey, Vishal. We'll get to know more about it, I guess, in this session today. So Shadab, you are having a very different background, and the course that you are pursuing is very different from all of us. So what exactly does the course cover at TISS?
Absolutely, Shivangi, and that's where a bit of contrast in my choice of course as well as the pathway that I took. So what actually happened was I was in a consulting firm, and my friends happened to be joining many colleges, the likes of IIMs and the top base schools, colleagues of which I see over here. But the point was when I communicated with them, they were not a bit different, and the rules they were picking up, that was not much different from what they were doing at that point of time. And similar was the case with me. I thought, no, I got to do something else. I would definitely want to go ahead and pursue something, but then I want to do something else. And at that very same point of time, I came across the behavioral economics aspect. That was the booming element, and behavioral science that got me interested. That drove me to which course in India is deploying that, and hence I came across ODCL. The basic element of ODCL is OD is definitely organizational development, a part of HR, but what it differentiates itself in is the use of behavioral sciences. And that got me interested, and I'm glad that I got in. I sat for the first time. I did not make it through. I made it through many other colleges but didn't go for it. I sat another next time, got into ODCL, and proud to be here. I went into Amazon, deployed the theories that I learned, deployed behavioral science, engaged with people, and they loved it. So got the PPO. Just like someone else was talking about, that never sat for an interview, never sat for a GD, and so didn't I, and was a lovely journey over there.
Great. So Shatab, we have a question for you from Avinash. So he's asking, could you talk about your transformation from being a management consultant to getting into strategic HR?
Yeah, that's a beautiful point. The first and foremost thing was there I was drafting PPTs. To be honest, the first thing that comes to a consultant is drafting PPTs, pointers, and here you could see instant gratification. I impact lives of people at the very same point of time. The moment I become strategic, the moment I choose to add business with HR and merge those aspects, I do see the impact on millions or thousands of people who are working in the organization, and indirectly millions of people, considering the fact that we are in India. So that's where the first fundamental thing happens. You get to know how does people part affect the business, and vice versa. That interaction of the elements, that's beautiful to see, and wonderful to work with.
Great, great answer, Shatab. So I hope that answers your question, Avinash. So the question for MDI people is that Rohit is asking us, can MDI HR students apply for non-HR roles too?
So I think I'd like to take up that question. The answer is a no. So MDI HR students apply for HR roles only, is what we know.
Okay, so Aditya, you have been quiet all this long. So you being a Bangalorean, what is your journey with human resources?
Yeah, so my journey was similar to Adya's. So it was not a conscious choice to take up HRM program as such. So while I was working with Cognizant, I felt that I was getting restricted to one particular project for a very long time. So I really wanted to do an MBA to like broaden my horizon and ensure that I get to experience more of different projects rather than getting stuck to one particular thing. And then I gave CAT and XAT and converted XLRI HRM program. And from there, it was not like I didn't have to make any second choice once that was done, because XLRI HR is the best program is the best program for HR in the country. So really, I didn't have to think twice before taking the plunge into human resources. So that was my HRM journey so far.
That sounds great, Aditya. So guys, now let's transition into the next phase of this discussion. So what are the different kinds of roles available today in human resources? From talent acquisition to change management, organization design, people management, and analytics. So we would love to hear your internship experiences and which functions did you contribute towards in your respective organizations.
Okay.
Yeah, please sure. Go ahead.
Please go ahead, Devan.
Okay, thanks. So one of the, if I might say, pleasures which I had while interning with Amazon is that I got to experience a plethora of verticals in the HR domain itself. So one of my internship projects was to review certain policies. Over there, I got to interact with people from each and every verticals of HR, be it diversity and inclusion, be it compensation, be it staffing, be it recruitment. And that's the beauty of the function of HR role. You get to interact with almost each and every segment of the business. And through those interactions, you get to learn a lot about what the other vertical is all about, what the other function role is all about. So HR in a way is not just it's not just stopping you at HR itself, it's asking you to push your limits and go forward and to know about the other verticals and roles as well. So I think that was one internship experience which I would definitely love to cherish, and it was quite enriching for me.
So I'll be going next. So my internship experience was primarily in the talent management space. But what was something unique about that was I got to interact with some 60, 70 people, some 60, 70 folks who had joined Godrej from B schools, and the issues in their careers, their career journeys, and it was majorly a project on the careers of these people. So what I realized within the first couple of interactions was they won't open up unless you make them comfortable, unless you make them open up. They are busy people, they are ASMs, they work 12 hours a day, you get a time of half an hour after so much of pushing and haggling, and then it's very difficult to get them open up. So I had to think twice or thrice, had a discussion with my manager, had a discussion with my seniors as to what exactly can make them open up, what exactly can give them the confidence that I can share what the problems I'm facing with this person. And if I say that the major learning from my internship was that how do you interact with people to build that trust so that they open up to you. So I think that was a very unique experience. And I mean, I had this discussion with the manager at the end of the internship that if I were to say just one thing I learned from this internship, it's how you interact with whom, and what is the approach you take, and how do you get the other person to feel confident enough to share whatever he or she is feeling. So I think that's what sums up my journey.
Okay. That sounds really amazing. Yeah. Adya.
So, if we are talking about our internship experiences, so last year I interned with ABGLP program only, and my internship was in ER domain, employee relations, with Hindalco. Hindalco is, I mean, one of the most sought after company if one wants to have an ER experience in manufacturing. So I mean, it was an amazing experience for me because I am not a person who is very outgoing. I prefer to stay in my comfort zone before, but during my internship I just proved myself wrong. So I was just interacting with my manager, and I was just citing my data points which I had collected till that point in my office, and he said that it is very easy to comment sitting in a corporate office what is happening in the plant sites, so why don't you take a visit and see what is going to happen. So I just started visiting the plants, and during my internship of 2 months I visited across 12 plant units across the country in the remotest part of the country, and I had the opportunity to interact with the union leaders, the employees who were working there, as well as the plant the senior officials in the plants, and I had to gather a lot of perspectives from all the stakeholders who were involved with the particular project of mine. So, I mean, my internship was actually a life-changing experience for me, and I discovered a new version of myself. And also, I had a lot of insights about the employee relations aspect of HR, labor unions, as well as the legal aspects of HR.
Yeah, that actually sounds quite holistic. So we have a question from Rohit Singh. So he wants to ask people from XLRI that people who take up the XLRI HR course, they see them that they take up product management roles. So what other roles can XLRI students who are pursuing an HR specific degree can get during placements?
So yeah, you can definitely get a plethora of roles, with not just the prodman roles. So sorry, most of the consult companies which come, they don't distinguish between BM and HR as such. They look at your profile as a whole and then decide on which students to take up. Apart from that, we also get, there are also a lot of students who get roles in other domains such as sales and marketing, finance. And it's not just only restricted to HR. So it depends on how you frame your CV and how you want to portray to the recruiters. So depending on that, the selection criteria comes into play.
Great. So people want to hear about more about your summer internship experiences and how was it different this time given it was virtual, and what were the challenges and learnings?
Maybe I'll take that up because I kind of had a different internship experience apart from everybody because I was into consulting. So, and PwC Service Delivery Center is different than PwC India, and it works with the US clients, right? So we didn't necessarily have the ability to get to talk to those clients because of all those non-disclosure agreements and all those things. But we did we had a transformed internship experience where we had to work on kind of a research project where I had to make a white paper on the paradigm shift that was happening during at the time. And because India was just getting to understand what COVID is and its impact and everything, and how it is going to impact the consulting industry, how it is transforming the HR domain as a whole. And I was to propose a back to work strategy based on whatever was being done currently and what I was able to infer from the data that I was getting. So it was an amazing opportunity in terms of the fact that I was working with a huge amount of data. I was working with tools that I had never worked with, and I was able to present all of that into just a 10-page report at the end, which I would never have thought with the amount of data that's available about COVID currently on the internet. And so that's amazing if you think about it, and the kind of accountability and the responsibility that they give at the very beginning of the internship, and they give you this autonomy, right? Go ahead and do how you want to do it, and let's see how you do it and what your view or the perspective is to this particular problem. So that's something I never had while working with TCS, because it's very restricted. And I think people who work with TCS or Cognizant would agree to this, that you're not able to broaden your perspective that way, or your horizons, and you're put into these limits are put there for you. But to get for PwC to give me that responsibility, go ahead, do whatever you want and put it in front of us the way you see it, was, I think, a good boost to my confidence. And that's why probably I was able to deliver and get the PPO at the end. As for the difficult part, or the problems that I faced during the internship, probably was the backaches, because my home was definitely not equipped with ergonomic chairs and tables. Apart from that, long hours, yeah, sure. And this virtual nature sure has some sort of, there's a disconnect. No matter how much you talk or how much you try, at the end of the day, you won't be able to make that particular connection. It will take you 10 times more effort to make that connection. I think that's the biggest part that was lacking, in my opinion, at least.
Definitely.
I too definitely had a very similar experience, but once pain is the toughest to get through. So for me, my pain was on a very different scale. Interning at a point in time when I was in Bihar, and at the most rural possible location in Bihar, a 10 kbps speed. And what I mean is 10 kbps speed is the best speed that I had at that point of time. Plus the internet connectivity would falter as soon as the electricity would go off. And every time I would log in to have a call with the people, stakeholders in US, Belgium, and in the middle of the night, the cow would move, the goat will make some sound or the other. There will be other animals who would be making some or the other sound. And it would be it would get ridiculous in terms of people engaging with me would feel that what's going on behind the scene. And this happened quite a lot of time. So the director who I was working with, L&D India head, operations head, she definitely asked me, what's going on? Are you able to manage this? I did had a lot of trouble, but kudos to the team itself that I was kind of bogged down that would I be able to stand to the expectations. And then at that point of time came the statement, which I definitely would want to bring up from the Amazon L&D head, that Shadab, doesn't matter which situation are you in, I would not give you any extra edge over any other individual, any other intern, but what I make sure is I stay with you and ensure that your every problem gets solved. There was this chip that has to be security key that has to be sent onto the laptop to be plugged into laptop, and since it was blocked, as soon as it opened up, I got security keys from 5 specific locations across India. And that just talks about the intensity of care and concern for employee enablement. And that's the experience. It was difficult, but I made it through, and thanks to the enablement of my manager.
Thanks, Shadab. Thanks, Shadab, for the answer. I think it would answer a lot of queries that we are getting right now. So guys, let's move to the next phase of this discussion. And the question which appears now is that how did you guys go about preparing for your internship interview? And how was your internship experience?
So if you talk about preparation, since our preparation was on campus, so all we could see was that everyone hurrying about, everyone studying, everyone doing, so that peer pressure effect does come into play at that point of time. And it depends on how you absorb it. If you absorb it in a positive manner, then it does take you to heights. Whereas if you take it in a negative sense that everyone is preparing while I am the only one who's in the back foot, then it might affect you psychologically. So take the best and positives out of it and move ahead. Now, in terms of preparation, thankfully, we all had our friends at that point of time and we studied together. We looked into the company, whichever company was coming, we looked into its details, we looked into its what they actually want from an interviewer. So for, let's say for Amazon, they look for people who actually follow their 40 leadership principles, as well as the one where they look for where the people can give a STAR approach. So STAR is situation, task, action, and result. So you relate a story of yours with a situation, and then you say what task you took upon, what action you did, and what was the result. So in this practical, when you take up this experience and implement in a practical manner that can be implemented in a managerial scenario, that's what they look for. It's all about interpretation and to keep your calm and confidence when you're giving the interview, nothing much.
Thanks, Devayan. And like Naveen, you had shared earlier that you took a psychometric test which made you believe that you had the qualities of making a good HR. So what are those qualities that a candidate should entail, according to you?
Well, okay, this is going to be debatable probably, but for me, I think it's very important. People don't realize this when they look at HR, but I think it's very important for an HR to actually know the business, because you are going to be the spokesperson who's going to, interact with people inside and outside of the organization and different people altogether as well. So if you think that you not knowing business or finance or accounting, it's going to work, it will not. And for somebody who's going to think or is thinking of taking consulting or HR consulting into you have to know in and out of that business. So I think the knowledge or to have a business perspective is the first thing, no matter which domain you are working in. Secondly, no matter how overused this is or how cliche this sounds, you have to be a people person, I think, because you have to be in constant touch with people. And as somebody already mentioned, because you don't just interact with people from HR, you interact with people from accounting, you sales people, because you have to take a lot of things and work on those problems that come up from these interactions that you're having with them. So I think second is the people perspective that you bring in. And third is probably at this point of time and with COVID in picture, I would say empathy is very important. And as I was working on this project during my internship, right, and this came out as a very strong inference as well from all the data that was gathering, because everybody who was working on changes or how HR came in the front now with COVID, the one thing that I could sense was every process or every policy that was being modified was being made more people-centric now. No matter what we were working on or what they were trying to solve, the focus was on people, be it communication, be it employee engagement, be it retention, be it compensation, restructuring. All of those things were made with a sense in mind that, okay, people have to be the center or the centerpiece of all of this. So I think these are the 3 or 4 things that are important in my opinion. I'm sure everybody else would have different opinions as well.
Definitely, Naveen. I totally agree with that. So we also have a question from Shravan, who is asking us, what is the general trend with respect to the projects and the roles that are now available in HR? Is it only talent acquisition or more?
So I think I would like to take that. It's definitely not only talent acquisition. Talent acquisition is just one part of it, and it's generally rare. I mean, it's rare that you just go into the business and get talent acquisition roles. That's something people choose to do after 3 to 5 years of experience. That too, if you have an inclination. What I feel is recently people go into talent management, people go into compensation, most people go for HRBP roles in their first stint because that's the closest role to the business. I mean, if we talk about the business part, and for the consults, it's completely different. I mean, you start doing different kinds of projects. From my limited knowledge, I can comment only on that. But I think most people do take up HRBP roles. I mean, it's different for this pandemic, but like Adya said, she's been doing different projects. So, I mean, it's difficult for people to, get into HRBP roles in the first go due to the pandemic. So I believe that's going to change next year, but that's how the trend is. So it's not only about talent acquisition.
Definitely agree on that part as well. Just a few incidents that I've seen, and with the communication that I had in other colleges as well. In fact, in my college as well, that the specification roles are specialized roles are taking over a big lead over as of now. And with the demands of the industry, for example, you talk about talent analytics, a person who needs to understand HR, who needs to understand people and understand analytics as well. You don't get a generic candidate for that. So you have to these type of roles, especially roles in change management. One of the most emergent themes that you would see is change management. Every company, change is that buzzword after coronavirus, right? After COVID, change is the second buzzword, and a course that actually fits in that, and people, the roles for that are emergent. Like 70% of the S&P 100 companies, according to Gartner Talent Neuron, are looking for change management professionals, and these happen to be the HR people, because they understand the people, and the people play with the business systems. What is the kind of engagement? So that's my stand on it.
So I think Adya is having a role in analytics, right? So what exactly is the role, Adya? And what do people have to study to bag a role like that?
No,
Assessment
actually,
stuff?
since I mean, my role is not exactly in analytics, so it is a small part of my role. So basically, my project currently has a lot of behavioral economic concepts in it. So we analyze the way people are, their productivity. I mean, the productivity lies, how their behavior, their day-to-day work life affects the productivity of the firm. So I'm actually working on that. For me, basically, I'm in an ABGLP program, so it has kind of very different projects which we go through in first year of our three stints. So, I mean, there was nothing which I did which was different from what we usually prepare for during summer internship to bag a role like that. But if we are talking about preparation for summer internship, I have had the chance to interact with a lot of people, and the only thing that I want to stress upon again and again is that it is very important during your preparation to be updated with what is happening in the HR world as well as in the world of business. So to keep yourself updated, there is a very practical approach which I think will be very much easy to adapt, is to go through the articles that are published by magazines like People Matters, or there are a lot of articles published by Deloitte. You can also keep yourself updated through LinkedIn posts by some of the leaders of the companies that you are looking up to, and also the case studies that you prepare through in your B school. Also, if you are targeting a role in ER domain, it is very important to keep yourself with the legal guidelines that are coming up every now and then. So to sum it up all, I think HR has different domains of, learning and development, organizational structure, or talent acquisition, change management, anything. But it is very important to know little about everything and be an expert with a single domain which you want a role with. So companies generally look for candidates who are updated with what is going on and can be used. I mean, they can be employed in a project from which they can to get innovative insights from people. So when people are coming straight away from the campus, they have a lot of things, which is very different from the general employees who are already working there. So interns are hired from this perspective to bring the newness and the innovativeness in the project. So don't forget to carry that with yourself, and do not ever be afraid of putting forth your opinion or your viewpoint. It is very important to make mistakes to learn. So yeah, so there are two parts of it: preparation for summer internship and how to work during a summer internship. So I think I have covered both.
Yeah, thanks, Adya. That was actually quite a really nice set of tips that would actually help people. So, Aditya, we have a question from you from Ayan. He has asked us, what is the importance of subject like organization behavior, and how important are they during internships?
Yeah, so to answer Ion's question, I think they're very important, the subjects that he has mentioned, OB as well as OCD. So as many of the panelists mentioned, change management is one of the hot topics, hot projects that many companies give to their summer interns during the course of 2 months, wherein interns have to analyze and design policies, how to bring about change in the organization. So in that regard, OCD is quite an important subject as far as change management is concerned. And OB as a subject is quite important from an HR perspective, because OB involves concepts wherein like an HR is supposed to act as a change agent for an organization and an employee champion. So all these concepts are quite important. And as you study, I mean, as an HR professional, you are supposed to understand how you can motivate your workforce and to understand the various aspects of motivation theories and to apply them in an organization. You need to know the basics. So in that regard, yeah, both OB and OCD are quite important, and many of the projects are directly based on these two subjects.
Thanks a lot, Aditya. I think it should answer Ayan's query. So going forward, I would like to know more in depth about the process and more about how you actually felt during the internship selection process. So I would like to know what exactly can a student highlight in his or her CV to be considered for an HR role, and how did you guys prepare for HR GDs, and what kind of topics were there at your time?
So I would like to take up the interviews part. As I said earlier, I'm not very conversant with what happens in GDs because I never sat into one. So for interviews, what I've always realized in HR, specifically for the internship perspective, it's not very, very content heavy. They won't ask you a lot of technical stuff, at least for the summers. What they're actually, very, very willing to know is what kind of a person you are, whether you have thought about what you want to do in life. It's more on the behavioral part. I mean, what have you done in life? What kind of situations have you faced in life? What kind of perspectives you have? And what's your opinion in general on a lot of things? So internship interviews generally tend to be more on a generalistic note with some sort of, awareness on general HR events, as Adya said, and with some sort of technical knowledge, which is very basic. This is different from what happens during the finals, but I think that's about the interviews. So it's more on the general behavioral part is what I believe.
Okay, thanks, Vishal.
Adding on to what Vishal said, I would like to say something is that it's at times very important for you to experience all the aspects of a selection process. So like a lot of us might be fortunate enough not to sit in a GD and all, but it's actually very imperative that you go through and experience all the selection processes. So GD is something, and especially since a lot of the selection might be online given the circumstances, it's about how you speak in a well-mannered fashion while not being disrespectful towards the others. So let's say we are talking over here. This is almost like a group discussion, but hardly at any point of time MBA group discussions become so so if I may use the word civilized like this. So at that point of time, it's not about saying more. It's all about saying the ones which will hit the moderator's heart. So what I mean by hit the moderator's heart is that, so let's say we're talking about a certain debate and there is some points and facts with which you can back it up. So let's say you state a fact and then you back it up with a point with some facts and figures, and then you give an example. So I think that's one of the best methods in which you can make your presence felt, in which you can give a suitable and strong answer, and in which you can moderate the GV towards your own way.
Definitely, Bayan. I totally agree with this. Naveen, would you like to add?
Yeah, sure. So I agree with both what Vishal and Debayan said, and I agree with how what Debayan said about GDs as well, because it's very important for you to sit in a GD. And I think for me particularly, what worked was the fact that I tried to bring in my opinion and not just put it out there and not say anything about it or not justify it. Make sure that it's heard and it's taken forward as well, because when you're in a GD, what matters is how valuable your point is, and in terms of data as well, and whether you have any strong backing for it as well, because just mentioning something and then not having anything to back it up won't make any sense to the moderator as well. And secondly, to give your kind of a taste to it. I mean, what marketeers call personal branding, I think that's very important. As to every time you communicate with somebody, you should be giving them a sense of who you are, so that when they recall the conversation, they remember, okay, this was Naveen, or this was, let's say, Aditya, right? So they need to remember you, who you were from just one conversation. So if you are able to do that, figure that out, I think that will help you a lot during your PIs as well as your GDs.
Definitely, Naveen. So we have a lot of questions coming up here. So Adya, there is a question for you, and the person is asking us, how easy is it for an IT industry HR person to move into manufacturing industry human resources?
So manufacturing comes up with a lot of implications, legal implications with the labor, because we are dealing with the labor union and the labor workforce. So it is very important to have an interest in the legal aspects of HR. So with the penalties compounding over a period of time, I mean, every day we go through news, such and such labor codes are changing and things like that. It is very important to be updated with all of these. So, I mean, I don't think it will be it is very difficult. I mean, it is not like a career switch. It is just about, the interest that you pursue something with. So for an IT industry person, if he or she is planning to take up a career in HR, I think it is solely by interest. And if he or she wants to get into manufacturing, then again he or she needs not, I mean, he or she should have some inclination towards labor codes, because it will be a part and parcel of their life while they're working in a manufacturing industry. So it comes very easy if you are kind of inclined towards it.
Thanks, Adya. So the next question that we have is from Rohit Singh. It's to the entire panel. So he wants to know if labor laws are taught in your colleges, and if not, then can you talk about labor law courses offered in your campus?
Okay. Yeah.
So I would like to take this up. Labor laws are taught very comprehensively at XLRI. So we start off with a fundamental course on labor laws in the very first term itself. And in every term during the first year, there is a separate course for law. And apart from this, we have two comprehensive electives as well, which are offered in this domain in the second year as well. So labor laws is something which is given a very high priority at XLRI, and it is something covered in comprehensively in both the years of the HRM program. So yeah, it is covered quite extensively and covers various aspects of labor laws, including industrial laws as well as the social security laws, and almost the entire spectrum of labor laws is covered in quite a bit of detail over here.
So I'd just like to add something to what Aditya said. While labor laws are of course covered in very great detail, one thing which is very characteristic of what we learn in MBA in terms of labor laws is a lot of learning. In fact, more than 90% of the learning comes through the cases, even the small snippets or the long cases. It's more on like this versus this case. This was the condition and this happened. So it's always that practical learning. Like it's not something we were taught in the way we were taught in undergrad. Like you need to learn this, mug this up, and then implement it. Even if it's checked in exams, it's always through new cases. You get cases to solve, and you have to apply that law in. I mean, it's as similar as if you were handling a real life case. So these cases kind of completely transform the experience you have in terms of the learning you have in labor laws. So
yeah, and adding to Vishal's point, in MDI, we used to have a lot of guest sessions from people who were coming directly from industry, and they were discussing with us the real life scenario, what is happening at the plants. Also, so I mean, it was a part of our HR course, and it was, it was covered very holistically well. So, yeah. So it is. I mean, I'm not aware of all the labor courses that are law courses that are offered by our campus. Vishal, if you have any idea, you can add on. But in HR, we do study labor laws and in great detail, I would say.
Yeah, so I think we follow a very similar, structure as to what Aditya said. We have these compulsory courses in the first year in almost, I think, all terms. The first 3 terms, there were one course in each term, and then you have one of those electives, and I think that's it. So, I mean, it's more or less similar, I would say.
So, yeah, adding on to what Vishal and Adya said, at XLRI, we also have the Tata Steel Labor Union, which is one of the oldest unions in the country. And there's a special subject as well, we focus called industrial relations, where we actually have a separate entity as a subject, where we actually get practical hands-on experience, where we go to the industry, talk to the workers, talk to the management, and over there we go through a collective negotiation or bargaining situation. And like Vishal mentioned before, it's actually a very hands-on experience, where you actually have to at times develop a case of your own, come up with your own solutions, suggestions, and solve real-time problems. So I think that's one scenario and one place where XLRI is really, really strong and dominant at with respect to all the other colleges here. And I think that's really one place where you can definitely try your hands out if you're interested.
Well, I think just SCMHRD is left, then I should represent myself as my college as well. I mean, I think I'm sure I was not aware of all the things that are happening at other colleges, but as everybody said, we also have throughout the 2 years, we have a dedicated course for industrial relations, starting from the basics, so that you get a knowledge, and then you get deeper to the laws, and then we segregate into the state laws, because every state as well has their own laws, right? So those laws are also taught. And as just now Debayan said, we also actually got an opportunity to go to ITC Ranjan Gaul's factory and work on their long-term settlement contracts that they work on with their unions. So those kinds of opportunities, I think, are available at all the 3 campuses. And if you are somebody who are looking for an HR course or MBA in HR, I think you shouldn't worry about this. Labor laws classes are, I think, the most interesting and the most engaging classes, because the kind of discussions that we end up with, and the kind of it usually gets heated as well, because everybody has an opinion, and then the interpretation of a law can be a lot of ways, right? Because sometimes there are blurry lines. So those discussions that end up happening are really interesting, and it's really engaging as well. So I think those are the most interesting classes as well. Yeah.
So Naveen, as you mentioned, heated discussions, we have a really interesting question from the audience. It's from Srijit. So he's asking us, did you face any hostile instance in your GD, and because of which you were taken aback? And how did you get back up from it?
Not me really, but I've seen people make very strong arguments. So let's say, I remember this one instance where there was this discussion on gender and diversity and inclusion in general, right? And there was this girl who made a mistake of going against the whole topic. And now it's like she had an opinion, she couldn't back it up really well. And everybody else took this opportunity to, get on to her, because now she's the woman and she's kind of going against the diversity and inclusion part of it. I think she slipped up there, but then I think that was one point where I think everybody else kind of capitalized on her mistake. But if I were to, be in her position and get back from that setback, is to, accept that, okay, I kind of made a mistake, but now I can't back from what I said. So kind of take everybody's opinions. Now, the good thing that happened is everybody constant participant in the GD. Now utilize that to your advantage and keep yourself in the conversation throughout. So even if you are at the back end, probably the fact that moderator would see is that you did well while you were backed up towards the wall and you still came out of it. So I think that's how you could, come out of the whole situation.
Thanks, Naveen. So people are asking us to elaborate more on HR analytics and how strategic HR actually contributes to the business. So any of one of you have insights on this topic?
Shivangi, could you come again on the HR analytics question?
Yeah, sure, Shadab. So the question is around how HR analytics is helping strategic HR to contribute more to the business.
So I do have I would not go on the overall aspect, but I do have a very straightforward example which could help elaborate this concept. So the predictive analytics allows you to understand which employee and which set of employees are on the flight risk. You get to know and you can predict attrition, what kind of age group or what kind of specific role, and what is the typical trajectory of an individual who leaves the organization. Once you have figured all of this out, you could actually identify at what point of time which kind of employee, if not given a substantial boost either to the motivation level or to the monetary level or other aspects as well, this person is going to leave the organization. And with that, you lose out the tacit knowledge, you lose out on multiple levels a talent to a competitor, and losing out at a competitor in the case of like COVID. This hurts the total intention of like an organizational setup. At a point in time like COVID, you cannot hire an employee who fits as well as that individual would have done, and you lose out a very competitive edge at that point of time. So just one example where analytics fits in with the strategic HR.
Yeah, sure.
Adding on to what Shadab said is that let's start with the pedagogy. We also have case studies over there as well as case competitions, right, in the B school. So what a case study does is that you have to go through the entire case and go through exhibits and then understand which part of the relevant case facts are important to come to an understanding. So that is the baby steps of moving towards analytics as such, where actually analytics is not just only about numbers, it's about going for the right numbers or right data. So over there, that's your first baby step moving towards the right way in which you want to analyze the case. And then comes a lot of other plethora opportunities where you can actually enrich your skills for analytics through case competition. So let's say I recall once there was a case competition where we had to promote a product. Now that was just a single line case statement that you have to promote this product and how you intend to do so. So you have to go through all of the financials, we have to all through all the marketing campaigns, we have to go through the HR strategies, we have to go to the through their promotional campaigns and then come up with a solution. So in that way, we had to analyze its competitors. We had to benchmark. We had to benchmark the data with respect to its competitors. We had to do a survey. We had to get feedback forms. So there's a lot of other things going on in the background as we discuss, as we decide on analyzing what is right for the product. Now it comes to HR analytics. Definitely, like Shadab said, it comes out down to how to engage employee, the cause of attrition, the cause of how to retain more, how talent engagement is helping us or helping the employees grow. So all of these actually come into play a lot while deciding for the strategy of the organization.
A great insight, Shadab and Devayan. So talking about cases, I have a really interesting question for you. So which HR concepts that you learned in your class have you actually implemented during your internship? Or do you recall any case study and learnings from which struck with you, which you could implement, on a day-to-day basis?
Okay, maybe I'll start.
I do. Yeah, please, sir.
Okay, thank you, Shara. So one of my favorite cases was, as we have already discussed a lot about change, right? So was about HPCL. So during about 1995 when liberalization started, right? So they government sold a lot of stock, stake what they had in HPCL, and that's the kind of point where they were trying to reorganize, or in terms of how do we bring in more customers and not spend too much on our marketing. So rather than going outside and looking at different marketing campaigns or the ways they could bring in more customers, they tried to change their internal communication methods and tried to bring in everybody and include everybody in this whole change process for the next 2 to 3 years, so that they could have a concrete vision in mind. So they used to have these sessions, which were called A sessions, where they brought in every department and people from these departments to come up with their own individual vision as to what company should be doing, and then try to converge that all into an organizational vision. And then they also try to use technology as well to implement the grievance systems and to the redressal system. So all of that was made online as well. So these kinds of things that they did, rather than doing externally, they did these internal communication changes. That was probably very useful for them at that point of time. And it paid as well because they grew a lot without investing a lot of money. So I think that's one of my favorite cases from my learnings. Yeah.
Thanks, Naveen. So Shadab, you wanted to say something on this?
Yes, so I would have figured out a case, but then since the case has already been covered, I would try to use a theory and its application, like which you said. So and before even entering the going for the internship, I just was scrolling through, since I had been selected in for Amazon. I was just figuring out what has Jeff Bezos said, and one thing that came up was the two pizza principle. He states that is, if you can feed up a team with 2 pizzas, then the team is good enough, and if you cannot feed it, then the size has increased and the effectiveness will decline. So this Jeff does not speak anything randomly. For God's sake, he is the founder of one of the largest companies. So that drove me. Why is he saying that? Why just 2 pizzas? Why not 3? Why not 2.5? So what is the reason behind that? And gradually one day, my OB faculty was just running through a core topic which was talking about the communication channels So what actually happens is Robert Heckman gave a theory that with more than 8 people, the communication channels increase, the coordination and relational losses happen to increase, and communication gets a bit difficult post 6 to 8 people. And that's what absolutely the 2 PISA principle says, that there is a 6 to 8 range. And that's how I connected the things, and I was like wowed that he is where he is because he knows all of this. So that's where I see social sciences application directly with what Jeff was saying. So that's one example.
So thanks a lot, Shadav. I think that was the right reference during dinner time, especially the pizza principle, I think. So we have a question from Aditya Gupta. He's asking us, what are the useful aspects of organizational change and development subject, which a person should study for internships? So any of you guys would like to take that question?
I think Aditya. So answering Aditya, what are some of the useful aspects of OCND, which is a course taught in XLRI? So in OCND, you are taught about a lot of frameworks and how the change management goes into play. So this is a subject which is offered in your second year. And over here, you get to understand about how a change process goes into play. So let's say you have to motivate a certain set of people, and there are various stakeholders involved. So which stakeholder to involve, which stakeholder not to involve, how much should that stakeholder be involved, how much it should not be involved. These are the nitty-gritties which go into while deciding on this topic. And we also go through a lot of simulation rounds. We go through a lot of project as a whole. We go through a lot of interactive sessions with guest lecturers as well. And overall, it's a very communicative topic where we can actually, it's a communicative subject as such, OCND, where you get to know about change management. And I'm sure a lot of people who have actually worked in a process-oriented organization, let's say like TCS, they have gone through what a change is like. So it takes into, so over there we went through it from a technical, or rather a customer point of view. Over here we're trying to implement it from an managerial perspective. So that's the only difference, and that's actually a vast difference, to be honest, where you get to understand the change process management.
Thanks a lot, Devayan. So we have a very interesting question from Shivendu. So he is actually giving us a case right now. So the case is that a person has tried a lot to inspire the team, but there is no change in their behavior. And due to this, the performance is constantly going down. So being an HR manager, what would you do in this situation?
Maybe inspiration is not what they need right now. Maybe you are looking at the wrong problem. So maybe get down on one-to-one interactions and figure out the problem first and then try to solve it, I guess.
Okay,
absolutely
that
agreed. And the same.
Yeah, Shadav, go ahead. Sorry.
Absolutely agree. And you need to figure out what works for one would not work for other. And that's the theory of motivation. Whether it comes from McLellan or it comes from Maslow, you would need to understand that what motivates a person would be not necessarily be monetary. If it's something else, if it's the work culture, and what you are inputting is not necessarily what will take the output. So figure out, diagnose, and deep dive what is the problem, what's the challenge, and then solve for it.
Thanks, Shadav. So a similar question had appeared earlier in the chat. It was for Aditya, from Aditya. So the question was, what is the differentiation between training employees and developing employees?
Yeah, so actually, there's a very fine line difference between the two, training and development. And often in organizations, the two are used synonymously with each other. But from what I understand, training essentially involves a formal program wherein an organization has some what do you say, systematic program in place wherein there's education that happens, so that the employees can gain their skills and apply them in their workplace. Whereas development need not be the same. Development can be as simple as a manager guiding an employee through on how to improve in the overall delivery of a project, or how to improve productivity and stuff like that. So that's the very minor difference there exists between the two. and which is often forgotten, and often you see organizations using the two terms very synonymously with each other. So there's not much of a difference apart from this minor aspect.
I would just like to add on to what Aditya said. Like we can take it very simply. There's a very minor difference, and we can take it very simply by understanding that. Let's say if we are moving our business to digital, so I train the store person to use the digital infrastructure. I'm training him, and if a manager is making his junior capable enough to take his position after 6 months in a very slow and subtle manner, that's development. So it's exactly, I mean, it's so similar and yet so different. So that's it.
That's great, guys. Thank you for your answers. They were really meaningful. So one of the questions that I had in mind would be around the tips you would give your juniors about what should they do during their internships to secure a PPO, and what do you think you did right as interns?
If I may go first, the thing is that the first thing which you need to keep in mind while interning and while trying to secure a PPO is that don't think of the PPO. That's the first rule, I think, which everyone should keep in mind, is that you are here for the 2 months of experience to learn and grow. That should be the first agenda. Now, if work goes into play, if the causal effect comes into play, the effect will also be there. If you have worked hard enough, if you have learned enough, if you have been the keen and eager person who goes up to people and asks queries, who actually knows the subject. It's not just about going up to the people in leadership roles and asking them questions for the sake of asking. It's about showing that eagerness. It's about diving deep. It's about knowing the facts and trying to learn more. And at the end of the day, executing whatever you have learned in the 2 months through your presentation or reports or whatever be the case. Constantly being engaged with your manager, talking to him or her, and setting the pace for whatever is you are going to do in the next few days. I think that should be the agenda and moral while going forward in your internship. And yes, definitely, if you work hard, the PPO will be yours. There is nothing as such like you have to crack a PPO. You have this mentality in mind that I have to do something, then generally it does not come into play. So go out there, enjoy yourself, learn, and all things go fine, all things will fall into place. You'll definitely secure that coveted PPO.
Thanks, Debayan. If any one of you want to add to Debayan's answer?
Yeah, I think I agree with what Debayan said. Don't really think about it first. If you are thinking about it, then you're probably going to miss it for sure. Secondly, I think the biggest problem that a lot of people do, or a lot of interns do, is to start solving a problem just as they got it. They don't try to question it, scrutinize it as much as you can as soon as you get it. Take 2 to 3 days or a week if you have the time to scrutinize the whole situation as to what can be done, and then whoever gave you the problem would have a vision as to how they want to see it right at the end of the day. So ask them what they want to see. If they are willing to give you that liberty to try and go out and see what you want to do, and try to converge both these things so that they fulfill their wants and needs, and you also at the end of the day deliver something which has your essence in it, so that it can be traced back to you, okay, that you did this. So I think there's a very fine line where you need to be very cautious about this. So I think if you do that, and obviously the small things, being on time, being respectful to their time, and if it's online like we did, so you have to put in extra efforts to communicate with not just your mentor, but go out of the way and take people time, be awkward, ask those difficult questions that you really think are stupid. Go ask those questions, they will appreciate it. Because they want us to come out of our shells as well, and you need to do that if you want to stand out as well. So I think it's a good mix of this plus a bit of luck, and you will get that PPO.
Thanks a lot, Navi.
Just
Yeah,
one
sure.
line that I would add, Shivangi, and all has been covered. Just one important point, and this is something that I draw from the bedrock of organizational development, the course that I'm pursuing. The bedrock is systems thinking. By systems thinking, what we mean is that you cannot see anything in isolation. So there should be an overarching strategy element. Otherwise, any initiative that you take, HR initiative, that would fall flat, and any success that would come out is purely by chance. So what you need to have look is strategic. You have to be systems thinking, applying systems thinking. How does one action interplay with the other action, and what is the impact? Does that have an impact on the business bottom line? How does it impact the top line? How is this affecting the morale of my employee? Why is my manager asking to do this? So you got to ask each and every question. And somebody said that you got to ask silly questions. No question is silly. In fact, if you get the answer, you get a direction. And if you can figure all of that out, put in a place, it's one thing. And the second aspect is setting your purpose right. Your purpose is not the PPO. Believe me, like if your purpose is the PPO, you might not end up with a PPO. Your purpose is to go there and solve, figure out the solution, learn things, and deploy what you learned directly over there. PPO is conditional. I saw a lot of friends going to best of the companies. COVID hit. They did not get the PPO. But does that mean that they did not do a good job? I would not say that. They were better than me. They were better than a whole lot of others. So go set the purpose right. That's what I would say.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Shadab. So I think we had a really great discussion today, and we have now reached the end of today's session. But before we part ways for tonight, I would just like to know from you that as an HR professional, how do you aim to bring a difference in the workplace? What is that one thing which you like to improve in today's organizations?
I would say a balance between personal and professional life. Given the current scenario, given the current circumstances, there's a huge need to balance in between that professional and that personal life. And bridging that balance is not that easy. It is tough. It is difficult. But yeah, as HR professionals, as leaders of the future, maybe we have to go there. If not at this point of time, but very soon.
Yeah, sure.
So for me, it would be bridging the gap between the planning and the implementation. So I discussed a lot with my friends also. I mean, all of us coming from top B schools, working in, interning with top organizations, there are a lot of policies in place in terms of HR policies. Everything is documented, proper PPTs, everything. But if we talk about, on-ground implementation with the junior level employees, things are very different. I mean, it's different from what we see at the top. So one of these discussions I had with the manager is she said that, it's whatever you propose, only 60 to 70% of it gets implemented. So if you can narrow this gap between planning and implementation, a lot of efficiency and a lot of results would improve. So I think that is something that definitely needs to change.
Sure, Vishal.
My stand is totally radical on this, and I might get hounded by a whole lot of my friends, but I would want to see HR become redundant, and I would want each and every manager in the line manager take up the HR's role, not in the sense that they start recruiting them in the first place or creating their JDs, but everything, the mentoring, the coaching, the guidance, everything, a manager should become the HR. And if that happens, there would not be a need for an HR course rather than the specialized units. And that's my vision for a company.
I feel that's exactly what Vishal said, that we talk about a lot of things, where managers are supposed to be the change makers, but they don't really execute that. And I think that's what Shadab is trying to say. But if I were to say that I agree with everything that has been mentioned so far, I feel when I started this program and started to do MBA in HRI, the whole situation was that I felt a disconnect between me and my HR while I was working. And to be very honest, employees don't really need a nod from HRs. They just need to know that you're there, that they matter, right? So if I, as an HR, can change that whole perspective about HR, I think it's a job well done.
Definitely. So Aditya and Adya, what are your visions for the future?
Yeah, so for me, I think will be to create a culture in which no one is afraid to, go up to someone or ask someone. So sometimes you are made to, sometimes a lot of employees talk about things like they don't feel valued in an organization, or sometimes if they are not having the opinion as most of the people are having, they feel disconnected. So I think my approach would be to create a workplace where everyone is approachable, and I would also want to revamp the whole onboarding processes that companies have in place. So that will impact a lot of greatly the employee experience that people joining the organization have. So my dream is to create an organization to have such an approach that every employee feels valued and they feel they feel that they can contribute in meaningful ways.
Definitely, Adya. I think culture is the secret sauce to any successful organization.
Yeah.
Aditya.
Yeah, so basically, for me, as we spoke a lot about change management and everything, so basically, my vision is to ensure that the employees of the organization are prepared for any change that might come, no matter how unprecedented it is. We have already seen how the COVID pandemic has brought about large-scale changes in the organizations across the world. So, as HR, as the change management, it should be the HR's job to ensure that no matter how drastic the change is, the organization and the employees are prepared for it, and there's a lot of empathy that is put into place so that the change is smooth and as smooth as possible for the employees and organizations.
Yes, totally, Aditya.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what I wanted to say is that I think we had a really incredible discussion today, and it covered a lot of depth in the HR domain. So thank you guys for taking out time and speaking with us today. I really enjoyed today's conversation. I'm sure our viewers have gained a lot from it as well. Wish you all the best for your future roles. And to all our viewers, thanks a lot for watching today's episode. See you all next week. Till then, take care and stay safe.
Thank you, Shivangi. Thank you, team.
Thanks, Shivangi.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Shivangi.
Shivangi and
Thank you,
Inside.
Shivangi, for having us here. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
All the
Shivangi.
best,
Thank you so
everyone.
much. And all the best.
Yes, all the best, everyone.
All the best.